them. And now former Florida House Speaker Marco Rubio is here. He's in a knockdown, drag-out slugfest of his own for the United States Senate in his state. There are lots of issues to talk to Floridians about, but tonight there is a new one, the BP oil disaster. Marco Rubio joins us live. Before we get to the disaster, these election nights are exciting, aren't they? Or maybe they aren't for you.
Well, they give you butterflies. You know, you're next. You know, I'm going to be one of these nights. Well, it'll be about our race in Florida. So, but it's an exciting thing to watch, obviously, for these candidates across the country. It's an exciting election year with so much at stake.
Which one are you watching tonight most of all?
You know, I think they're all very interesting. Obviously, everyone watches the governor's race in South Carolina, and of course, everyone's interested to see what happens out in California with the Senate race and the Nevada Senate race. I grew up in Las Vegas for a part of my life, so I still have deep ties to that community in Las Vegas and across the state, so we watch all of those races.
All right, the big news tonight, President Obama says he's going down to Florida. Florida is beginning to get threatened by this oil slick.
Yeah, we're worried about that, and unfortunately that it's happened. It's an ecological and economic disaster, and you would hope that the #1 priority of the federal government, and quite frankly I fear that it has not been, is to stop this as soon as possible and to work with those that can help it to stop. And the second priority has got to be to find out why this happened so that it never ever happens again. Whoever's responsible for this has to pay for the cleanup. They have to pay for the economic damages that they've created. But the most important thing is we need to figure out why this happened, because there's offshore drilling going on now and it's going to continue to go on, and we have to make sure this never ever happens again.
Well, it's pretty obvious who's responsible. It's one of 3 companies, Transocean, Halliburton, or BP, so that's a pretty easy one. What is it that the federal government is not doing that you would expect them to be doing?
Well, I think if you watch any of the press conferences that have been held out of Louisiana by Governor Jindal, you know right away it's that bureaucracy he's had to work through and fight through to get his state the kind of assistance they needed to help their marshes and protect their early on when there was an opportunity to do some of that. Just the frustration of dealing with a bureaucracy, with the disbursements, the chemicals that were used to disperse the oil, and the fight that they had with the EPA, and even the fights they've had with the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, a tremendous amount of frustration by the state of Louisiana dealing with that. I hope Florida doesn't have the same problems, because unfortunately it looks like we're going to have some impact here soon.
Well, it seems that the president's on the defense. He's taking a lot of the bait. He's getting a little sensitive because he's complaining about talking heads, even you know, and he's trying to decide who it is that he needs to kick around or something like that. So he seems to be pretty much on the defensive. Are you critical of the way he's handled this far? And if so, what would you have wanted him to do precisely?
Well, I think in the early days of this catastrophe, it wasn't dealt with that way. You look at the first 72 hours, the first week of when this happened, you wish the administration had been a lot more assertive about what exactly was going on. It really took about a week before there was a kind of a real and growing understanding of how bad this problem really was. The second thing is just providing aid to the state of Louisiana and the kinds of things they asked for, whether it was dealing with the bureaucracy of the Army Corps of Engineers, whether it was dealing with, you know, some of the other issues they had to face in terms of just getting the materials that Louisiana was asking for that only the federal government could provide to help, you know, protect their marshes.
You know, Florida's an interesting state with this, because if Florida does get, I mean, Florida's now threatened. You haven't gotten it, but even the threat can deter a lot of people from going down and enjoying your beaches. If people don't go down and enjoy your beaches, they're not buying things, and you are not a state that has an income tax, but you have a state sales tax, which is how you generate revenue. If people don't show up to use your beaches, now you don't have any revenue to run your government, and you're in a deeper financial problem than you ever were, aside from even the ecological damage.
That's no doubt. I mean,
so now what?
Well, obviously, you know, #1, you want to make sure that people have confidence that the state of Florida, and with the assistance of the federal government, is doing everything it can to protect its beaches. The second thing is that the information be accurate. The bottom line is that beaches in Florida have not largely been impacted by this. There's been some tar balls in northwest Florida. We hope that doesn't get worse, but by and large, almost every destination in Florida is open for business. That means fishing, that means our beaches, and luckily we're still seeing tourists coming, and they should come. Florida's a great place to be in the summer.
Well, it's sort of interesting, though, because, you know, it's when we sort of sort this out and figure out, you know, how much damage, let's say it's only BP that pays the damages, not the other 2 companies, but we try to figure out how much it's obvious for, you know, if they've destroyed fishing in Louisiana and hurt the animals, that's a pretty obvious one. But it's sort of the cost when it goes deeper along, people not going to a beach, and so people not coming from the north, and so that Florida is, you know, is hurt economically without a direct cost. It's sort of hard to collect from BP.
It's hard to measure. It's hard to measure. It is hard to measure because it has a trickle effect. It's also tourism. A lot of the tourism that comes for fishing, for example, the fishermen in Destin, Florida, and other places in northwest Florida already saw sharp declines in reservations just because of the news that they were watching. And so it is hard to measure. There's no doubt about it. Look, this is a very unfortunate situation, and we've got to deal with this. We've got to figure out why it happened so that it never, ever happens again.
All right. How's your slugfest with Governor Christ?
Well, we've got a 3-way race now. You know, it's Governor Christ has decided to abandon the Republican Party, although he said he would not in this very, you know, studio just a few months ago. And we'll have a Democratic opponent. We don't know who that will be yet in a 3-way race. But one thing hasn't changed. I'm the only one running in Florida that will stand up to the Obama agenda and offer a clear alternative.
But how does with having Governor Chris Ryan as an independent, though, how does it change your strategy?
It doesn't. I know what I stand for. It's the reason why I got in this race.
But it divides your party a little bit. I mean, it may steal some of your votes.
Greta, I actually think it unites our party. It now makes it very clear what most of us knew from the very beginning, and that is that in this race there was really only one candidate running as a Republican that would stand up to the Obama agenda and offer a clear alternative. And now it's clearer because Charlie Crist has abandoned the Republican Party. The truth is that the majority of Floridians do not support the growth in the debt that this administration is ushering in. The majority of Floridians believe that the world will be a safer place if America is the strongest country in the world. They want a strong, consistent, genuine voice in the U.S. Senate that will say that. I'm the only one in this race that will. So right now it's me against two guys that will support the Obama agenda.
So you're having fun?
I am. Some days are more fun than others.
You're tired?
No. Some days are more fun than others. And but generally speaking, I've been blessed with the opportunity to travel the state and talk about issues I care about deeply. I think this is the most exceptional society in all of human history. I want to make sure that's the country my kids get to grow up in.
All right, let me do something dirty. Will you join us election night?
Which election night?
This coming election night, November?
August 24 or November.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, now we've booked you, so now you got to show up. We've booked you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a dirty trick to doing it on the air.
I'd love to be it.
Thank you very much, and we'll be watching.
Thank you.
In just minutes.